one little positive nugget on the Nick Folk front. They lost the Falcons 3 games last year because of their kicking problems. So if you were to add 3 wins to the team a year ago, if had Nick Folk been there, we would have put them first in the list here. They would have won the division.
They have plugged the hole in the lifeboat. Hey-o, hello and welcome to another episode of Heed the Call, an NFL show. My name is Dan Hanzus. Of course, Marc Sessler, my fine co-host, joins me. And Mark, this is the end of I thought was a successful, to this point anyway. We never know how this is going to go, this episode. So I don't want to go licking lollipops just yet. But our 4-part Draft Cram Sesh, hitting every division, and we cap it today with the NFC South and the NFC West, has been, I think, helpful for all involved, and I'm looking forward to today's edition with some very special guests.
It's these episodes rise and fall with the guest, and I feel very good about who we have with us today. I like the idea that we're not licking the 4th lollipop before we produce the 4th lollipop. So nice, measured
Save it
approach.
for the dungeon, the Sessler dungeon, 3 a.m. tonight.
Okay.
All right. Without further ado, let's get right into it. And what a way to close things. Our opening guest, an old friend and a key figure in the Heed the Call journey, the man that helped get us set up after our departure from NFL media, and he is still killing it over at Underdog, where he's kind of like the grand poobah of both fantasy. Let me just say, Josh.
I think it's right.
Grand poobah. With Hayden, of course, of the draft coverage and also the fantasy coverage. And now we're lucky enough to have you to break down the NFC South division. Josh Norris, welcome back.
I am only here for a sneak preview of the Marc Sessler mock draft spectacular. So, Mark, whenever you want to send those 32 picks in my direction, I can just log off and I can be done for the day.
It's under lock and key at the moment. But as we discuss the 4 teams in the NFC South, as we will today, maybe a few little kernels of where my mind is going will be released.
And while we're here,
have
Josh,
you started this project, Mark?
Oh, he has.
Yes.
Yeah,
months.
I've been working away.
I think Justin and I, the camera got pulled back a little bit. Mark had jury duty a day ago and said, "I'm working on my mock draft right now." So I'm sure a totally focused atmosphere will lead to some of the great prognostication of our era.
Yeah, the life outcome of someone was decided by Marc Sessler figuring out what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to do with the 15th overall pick.
Yeah, I call it. It's called versatility. Let's leave it there. So.
And Josh, one of the great pundits in all of the draft industry, I do have to ask Lance Zierlein, who has become something of the Ivan Drago to Mark's Rocky Balboa, very dismissive of Mark, who he feels is an interloper, a Johnny-come-lately, a man who doesn't deserve respect, a real bad guy, a trash bag, just a terrible person. I mean, these are things that Lance says about Mark. Where do you come down on? Are you okay with Mark kind of coming and going as he pleases in the draft industrial complex?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I almost made a inappropriate reference that if Lance is the Lance is the Ivan Drago, I am the Adrian of Marc Sessler's journey with the NFL draft, but that's the wrong way of putting it.
Yeah, there's an intimacy there between Rocky and Adrian. Famously.
I do believe Josh and I.
You ever take Josh to the zoo, by the way?
How about call me the Apollo Creed? That may be a nemesis at one point, but now we are best pals working through this for the future.
But Drago killed Creed. We don't.
Well,
yeah, but that only intensified.
Me and Lance.
Yeah,
that only intensified the link between. I mean, that's a good. That the Creed is the right parallel because it wasn't official, but Josh and I did square off with our mocks one year. It was quite a while ago. It was in the sort of the foreshadows of this whole contest, but. We went head to head as Rocky and Creed.
And just as a man of a certain age who knows too much about the Rocky franchise, at the end of their first fight in one, Apollo and Rocky both exhausted after they go the distance. Apollo goes, ain't going to be no rematch. And there wasn't. In this case, Josh and Mark, never will be. You just let that sit where it is in history.
I am the equal level of exhaustion after putting pen to paper on 32 selections as boxers are after 12 rounds of battle. So I feel it.
All right. Enough of this. Let's get serious. The NFC South. I mean, can we get serious about the NFC South? How about the NFC South starts taking itself a little more seriously?
Come on, what'd you do, boy?
He gave power of attorney to our accountant.
I just didn't give anything to...
I mean, our one sound up for the Rocky franchise is from Rocky 5 when Paulie loses all of Rocky and Adrian's money and they have to move back to South Philly. We might have to update that.
Wow.
On it.
Thank you, Justin.
Check out the Throwback Podcast. Bob and I have had many a conversation about Paulie somehow getting power of attorney privileges turned over. I mean, that felt implausible in a film filled with unlikely situations.
Not the first go-to target for that task.
Let's start with the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, come on, NFC South. Come on. Let's go. It's time to get up and go. This team was a sub-500 division winner. Lost in the wild card round. Dave Canales is back. Some key additions: Jalen Phillips, Devin Lloyd, Rasheed Walker, Kenny Pickett's in the building. Watch out. John Mechie is here after a cup of coffee with my Jets. David Moore's back. J.J. Jansen, the long snapper's back. We go deep. Key departures: Rico Dowdle no longer in the running back rotation there. Cade Mays, the center. This is a team that needs linebacker, safety, center. And they have the 19th pick in the first round. They pick 51st in the second round, 83rd in the third round, 3 of 6 picks in this upcoming draft. Josh, take us through your thoughts on the Panthers.
Well, I would say your direct shot at the NFC South is a direct shot at the division winner. Let's not forget, though, Dan, they beat the LA Rams in the regular season. They beat the Green Bay Packers in the regular season. They were up on the scoreboard with about 2.5 minutes to go in that wild card round against the Rams once again.
Very true.
I think this is a developing team that now is going to have to face a number one, seeded schedule next year. And that's going to make things difficult. But there were some massive holes in that game against the Rams. I think it showed that they just did not have players, pass rushers that could get them off the field. And so you bring in Jalen Phillips. You have some range there with Devin Lloyd. And maybe you add someone at some point in this draft to help along with that, along with Nick Scorton's development as a second edge rusher. We know Derek Brown up the middle. So I think Dan Morgan has done a fantastic job of filling the holes, and they can maybe add some explosive players on both sides of the ball here in round 1 and round 2.
If you look at their defense and what they did this offseason, I think they improved themselves as much as any team in the South. I really do, and I think that Dan Morgan is someone that has probably been overly ignored or not talked about much, but they've got a plan, and I feel like they're far away from the days of David Tepper whipping a cocktail at an uppity fan. Like, if you look at the construction of the defense right now with Derek Brown, Jalen Phillips, Devin Lloyd, J.C. Horn, you've got elite players at each level there. And you're sitting at 19, and Dan Morgan basically said in his pre-draft presser, like, we feel good about the fact that whatever happens at 19, we can almost just take the best player available. Like, they have needs, not all over, but there's not a one burning need. I just want to see them give Bryce Young another weapon. I know they've drafted wide receivers 2 times in a row in the first. I think no team has ever done it 3 times in a row. You got a guy like Kenyon Sadiq sitting out there at tight end. Like, what's your sense that they might do?
My God, Sessy, you really did not give Jerry Jeudy your full attention at all, because I can tell you've been doing your homework here on the Carolina Panthers.
Look out, Lance.
One thing that I don't believe has gotten enough attention is the change in play caller here. Dave Canales has 3 years under his belt as a play caller, and at the NFL Combine just turned it over to Brad Idzik, Dan's favorite Jets GM son from John Idzik, But what I think is going to happen here is actually, like, over the past 2 years, we have truthfully seen the Panthers head into an NFL season and not understand the best passing concepts for their quarterback. And then they don't figure it out until about halfway through the year. And so doing that from the jump this year would be extremely beneficial. And we have seen the underlying metrics, the statistics would point to Bryce Young actually, when asked to throw down the field, being very, very successful with it. So Mark, I think Kenyon Sadiq is a really intriguing option. He's kind of a one of one when we look at tight end prospects in this class. But then another one would be Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, because the Panthers over the last 2 or 3 years have been among the worst in the league in terms of yards after catch, like a creative player with the ball in their hands to make, their passing game, their quarterback even better. And they certainly don't have a one-to-one player like him on this roster right now.
I like the way the Panthers have set up the season. And yeah, the way they closed was very strong. And if you remember, they were just throwing the ball all over the Rams in those games, both the win and the one where they nearly stole one in the wild card round. And bring in Pickett as the backup, which is a nice move. That's a very clear backup quarterback in the NFL. This is not going to be a situation where you would think Canales is going to be tempted if Bryce Young struggles. But at the same time, you want that pole-to-pole season for Young that really puts away any other questions. It's interesting how Stroud and Young will always be grouped together from how things played out in the draft, but they're both in kind of similar situations where this is kind of the prove-it year. So that's where I would like to see them go. Whether that's offensive line help, whether it's another weapon, whatever it is, kind of put this offense in the best position to succeed. And to your point, Josh, a little surprising that they would have the level of success they had down the stretch and then change up their play calling and potential, some elements of their scheme. But maybe they have an idea a plan that we don't see yet.
So we mentioned pass catcher. And again, Casey Concepcion would be my favorite pick there, or Kenyon Sadiq. The two other spots I could see them attacking would be offensive tackle. We know about Ike Ekwonu having that significant knee injury in the playoffs. They did bring in Rasheed Walker, who I would say is kind of a fill-in here. He has his own injury stuff, and that was a deal that everyone expected him to get, north of $15 million per year, and it's down to $4 million for a one-year rental. And then obviously on the opposite end, Taylor Moton isn't getting any younger. So offensive tackle could be a potential, or like a deep safety, a Dylan Thieneman type out of Oregon to kind of pair perfectly with Trevon Moehrig, who is more of an in-the-box, attacking up the field player. And so if you have those two corners, and Mike Jackson had a fantastic year, we know what J.C. Horton can do, along with like a single high, deep roaming, downfield type like Thieneman, that is a pretty cool trio to cover a lot of ground.
All right, let's move on to the team that most people thought a year ago would be playing and representing the NFC South in the playoffs, but it didn't work out that way for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, after a hot start, finish 8-9, same record as the division winner, but they lose out on tiebreakers. They miss the playoffs. Todd Bowles is back. A little bit surprising to some people, or maybe just me, but he is back. They add Alex Anzalone, Kenneth Gainwell in the backfield, Ashawn Robinson. They bring back Cade Otton, the big name, obviously. Key departures, Mike Evans, also huge. Levante David retired, Jamel Dean. So this is a team that picks 15th in the first round, 46th in the second round, 77th in the third, one of 7 draft picks in this class. Man, let's start here, Josh. The Mike Evans of it all. It's kind of an end of Levante David. It is a changing of the guard while keeping Baker Mayfield, while keeping Todd Bowles. You're keeping elements of the franchise in place while other big parts of it fade away.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that the identity on both sides of the ball over the last 5-10 years has totally shifted in just one offseason. So from that regard, I mean, Emeka Egbuka kind of had a reverse rookie season in that his numbers were fantastic in the opening 8 weeks of the year, then really tailed off in the final 8 weeks. Chris Godwin came back, didn't look like Chris Godwin at all. They have to step up, right? Bucky Irving missed a massive portion of the season. We all remember how electric he was during his rookie year, creating on contact, winning outside of it, and creating those explosive plays. And they already made a play calling change as well. I believe Zach Robinson, now from the Atlanta Falcons, is their play caller too. So that's all set on offense. And on defense, this team desperately needs another outside pass rusher, and they barely added outside pass rushing help to go along with not replacing Levante David. So Jason Light, who I feel, Mark, is one of the best GMs in the NFL right now has a lot to do in just one weekend of the NFL draft.
Yeah, we haven't really seen them shift this way roster-wise in a while. They've been very consistent. Like, they've had veterans that have stuck around. Todd Bowles has stuck around. I just got to believe that, like, if Todd Bowles is your coach, it's because you want him to orchestrate a defense that takes out opposing quarterbacks, and they just feel real light there. I wonder if there's, I mean, if you're Todd Bowles, it's like, I need defensive help to probably keep my job. And from the other side of it is we watched this offense fall apart. The whole team fell apart down the stretch. Like, you can't have it happening on the Todd Bowles defense as well. That said, like, they're a little light at wide receiver, and it's going to be really interesting to see, Josh, like what happens with this wideout class, and also like a Kenyon Sadiq, who's sitting here at 15, because you don't want it to go to the Panthers. You want to steal that guy away from them, but also fortify a wideout group that does not look the same right now.
Yeah, I think Chris Godwin just has to get back to 90, 85% of what he used to be. Like, he was moving fine, I felt, last year, but he was just uncharacteristically dropping these passes that he would previously haul in. I do wonder, Mark, and you know this from watching Baker with the Browns. I mean, he is the NFL season is so long quarterback out there, in that, like, in the first 6-8 weeks, we might have him mentioned in the fringes of MVP conversation. And then when things start going bad, they kind of snowball a little bit. He drops his eyes. He gets banged up. That playmaker mentality doesn't exactly work when he thinks he's the best athlete out there on the field. And, you know, he's not. Then you have negative plays that come from it. I kind of wonder if this team says, okay, rather than try to replace Mike Evans, rather than put more and more and more in the stuff on Baker Mayfield, why don't we just make our offensive line one of the best in the NFL? We kind of already have that with Tristan Wirfs, who was banged up a bit last season, but still one of the best left tackles in the league. Luke Gadecki at right tackle. Graham Barton is an emerging player at center. Why don't we go and get the best left guard in the draft with someone like Vega Ione out of Penn State? And again, just trot out a top 3 to top 5 offensive line. Hope they stay healthy, because that really is what makes playoff teams come December and January.
I love that, because I think Baker, for all his daring do, and we love to watch him, is more willing to put himself out on an island unnecessarily at times in terms of risking his body and et cetera. I mean, for me, this is also essentially the last year of Baker's deal. And ownership on down has said, like, we are committed to him. We want to pay him. He's going to get a big contract. Nothing derails that, but he is coming off like a tail end to a season that raises more questions after a startling start to the campaign last year. It's like they fell off a cliff, and Baker was part of it. He wasn't alone, but I love the idea of keeping him upright, because he'll play through injury, but we don't want to see that.
No.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, Josh, you know, you need a bounce back from Godwin. Mike Evans is gone. Also, Egbuka had a kind of strange rookie season where about 6 weeks in, and the fantasy heads know it for sure, you thought you had, 2003 Anquan Bolden. That's a deep pull for those that know, as a rookie who immediately is a major difference maker. And then he really faded in terms of their offensive game plan and lost some of his confidence, it appeared. So you need the first 6 weeks of Egbuka. You need Chris Godwin to be the old Godwin. You need Cade Otton to be a playmaker in this offense. And I guess the other thing is, like, the churn at play caller. That has been another thing for Baker that's been an issue. So, yeah, this is an important draft. I feel like you can look at it, if you want to be pessimistic, and look at it as, man, was last year kind of the last year of the window of this whole group, and it just didn't work out, and now we're looking at a team in transition. But, you hit on a big draft here, Josh, and you could fix a lot of things. So I feel like a lot of pressure on Light this season.
And I think he's done a great job outside of round one as well. Like, you can look at Cody Mauch, who was a second-round pick, or Yaya Diaby, who was a third-round pick back in 2023. We can go further. Jalen McMillan, obviously Bucky Irving was a fourth-round selection. One more name I want to throw out there as a possibility at 15 that I don't think is getting enough attention is, and Mark, you know this, so I'm not Apollo creating you here.
We'll see.
This is super deep.
Educate me, though, Josh.
Yes. Malachi Lawrence, UCF.
Just nod your head, Mark.
Yeah.
I know who he is.
Say IS.
At the top of the draft,
Nice.
We have the Arvell Reeses, the David Baileys, and the Reuben Baines. Almost certainly those guys are going to be off the board. But then after that, it gets like really dicey. Every single player has some type of flaw that you can poke holes in. And I understand that at the start of this process, draft experts like Mark maybe didn't put Malachi Lawrence, in the middle of round 1, but you go to the NFL Combine and he's a freak athlete, or maybe Mark was the only one that did this, and I just think this is the top of his range where these teams say, look, I brought in Al-Qadim Muhammad opposite Yaya Diaby, and that's all I have, and we can't get these guys in for agency. So Lawrence reminds me a lot of Odafe Owe in terms of these like second phase sacks, these chase down sacks, because of his pure athleticism. And we know that's the vast majority of when those plays happen are the 4 or 5 second passing plays. And so I just want people to keep Malachi Lawrence on the radar here.
Mark made all the same points to me over omelets the other day. So yeah, he's
I'd like to hear it confirmed though.
Yeah. Let's move on to my favorite team in the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. Always a blast to see what the Falcons are up to. And here's a anonymous NFL executive recently to The Athletic on the Atlanta Falcons moves and free agency. There is nothing about what they have done that I can say that makes sense. All right, so with that said, let's get into it. Kevin Stefanski goes from the Browns to the Falcons. Incredible. Another team that finished 8-9 but missed the playoffs on tiebreakers. Tua obviously is in the building. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver. Austin Hooper, tight end. Nick Folk, I'm upset the Jets let Folk get away. Was rock solid as the kicker last year. Chris Williams, defensive lineman. Aziz Ojolari is there. Kyle Pitts re-signed. Key departures, Mark's boy, Tyler Algier, David Onyemata, D. Alford, Kirk Cousins is in Vegas now, Caden Ellis, Darnell Mooney. So here's a team that does not have a first-round pick, thanks to their brilliant maneuver last year of trading it to the Rams to beef up in their pass rush. So their first pick comes just inside the top 50 at 48. One of just 5 picks in this draft. Get to work, Falcons. I can't wait to see how it plays out. Josh?
I mean, Dan, let's just read that key additions list again. When Tua Tagovailoa is the number 1
headliner
key addition, and then Jahan Dotson is next, who couldn't even crack 300 receiving yards on the Eagles after being a failed first-round pick by the Washington Commanders. Austin Hooper is probably 34 years old at this point. It. And then the rest of this is just baloney, other than Nick Folk, your beloved Nick Folk.
He's badass.
So, I mean, the Falcons really can't be playing for 2026 here. Like this room at multiple levels, and we didn't even cover that their right tackle just up and retired, and then they had to go and get the false start machine in Juwan Taylor on the 17th wave of free agency, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball. We haven't even talked about the defensive side of the ball here, where they spent again top 13 selection to go and get James Pierce, who now has found himself in deep waters off the field and probably never plays another NFL down. So, Mark, this is one of the disaster franchises in the league that Kevin Stefanski has to, reemerge into some form of positivity.
I think if you're Stefanski, who was telling the press that Caleb McGarry would be good to go later this summer and at a key position for them. I know they've made a few additions there, but I wonder if they're kind of backed into filling need at 48, like a right tackle. But the other position I'd look at is outside of Drake London, there is not much happening at wide receiver for the Falcons. So do you get forced into having to take one of these positions of need? I honestly, like after the Stefanski experience in Cleveland, I get the coach of the year stuff is sitting out there, and he helped the team early on, and there was some direction, and they had a decent offense under him. But the whole thing fell apart to such a degree over the last 2 years that I feel like he's a mystery as to what he is as a head coach. But this is a team with no first-round pick, with some gaping voids on both sides of the ball, and seems like after some progress have taken a step back.
I mean, Stefanski, it's like jumping off the Titanic into a lifeboat and then looking down and there's a 3x3 hole in the bottom of it.
Correct.
But, let's try to, because I know Falcons fans are starting to get fired up probably now. So,
but Dan, I think the sad part of this is they have superstars. They do. Like Bijan Robinson is a superstar. Right. I want Bijan Robinson to be on a good NFL team, not a bad NFL team. I want to see Drake London be this new wave of slot-ish wide receiver and dominate that area. But he now is tied to Tua Tagovailoa and another injured Michael Penix. And Jesse Bates, I think, can be a superstar in the league. Like, teams do not want to throw over the middle when they face off against this Falcons defense. And it's not, though, that like, oh, they just need to fill some holes. They only have 3 picks in the top 5 rounds and 5 picks in total overall. So like, you have to hit on 3 of these 5 in order to like have a successful year, because typically that's 3 out of 7 or 3 out of 10. And they are just going into this like ammo cabinet that is just
it's
totally
tough.
empty.
I mean, listen, the trade, which we derided the moment it happened, or at least some of us did, like last April, to lose your first round pick. That's, I think, the 13th overall pick that the Rams have as a result. And that 13th pick, that could be, right around the position where the first wide receiver goes off the board or the second wide receiver. So you look at like what they could have had, but they went all in on they wanted to shake off the curse of John Abraham, obviously, and get the pass rushing going. And now even that with the off the field issues is a problem. So yeah, this is a tough team to not skew negative on, because it's a team with a lot of holes to fill and not a lot of draft picks, and that's a tough spot. So
one
that's
little
where the
nugget,
Falcons are.
one little positive nugget on the Nick Folk front. They lost the Falcons 3 games last year because of their kicking problems. So if you were to add 3 wins to the team a year ago, if had Nick Folk been there, we would have put them first in the list here. They would have won the division.
They have plugged the hole in the lifeboat. Yes. I would say, why put Nick Folk out there at wideout? He looks like he could be crafty. Put him in the slot.
He could do it all.
I quickly just want to mention a player at 48 overall, just to give the Falcons fans a little bit of hope. I think someone like Jeremy Bernard, who's a wide receiver out of Alabama, would be perfect here. He did a little bit of everything in that Bama offense. They built the passing attack around him, despite, a sophomore season, Ryan Williams being linked right up there with one of the best wide receivers in college football. He got like backfield snaps, manufactured screens. He runs dig routes over and over and over again over the middle. And then he also won down the field. Like, he can play any of the 3 wide receiver spots. So if he has to be your number 2 in 2025, he can maybe do that. If he has to be your number 3 on a good team in the future, he can probably do that as well. So just pencil in Jeremy Bernard at 48 overall.
And unsolicited advice to owner Arthur Blank, and one of my favorite new things in football, president of football, Matt Ryan. Don't do anything dumb like trade next year's first round pick to get into this. This is not the greatest draft class, right, Josh? Like, maybe we just view this year as what it is, a developmental season, and we'll take a bigger crack at it in the 27 draft. Just patience if you can. Arthur Blank's like 140 years old, I understand, but let's make some smart decisions in the next week.
Check back in next April, Falcons fans.
All right, one more team. Let's head to the Bayou. It's not really the Bayou. I mean, they're in the middle of downtown New Orleans. The Saints. The Saints. Kellen Moore, our boy. Alan Moore.
Great fan base.
Yeah, great fan base. Great culture. Great old dome. 6-11, missed the playoffs last year, but there is Alan Moore. There is some reason. Alan Moore. There is reason to be excited. Alan Moore. There is reason to be excited because you have a young quarterback that you believe in. A young quarterback.
Justin is heavily indebted to the THC that he imbibed 12 minutes before we kicked off here.
You add, as we move away from the Alvin Kamara era, you add Travis Etienne, guard David Edwards, linebacker Caden Ellis, Noah Fant, the tight end, comes over. Key re-signings, Julian Blackmon, John Ridgway, Dylan Radunz? Key departures, DeMario Davis goes back to the Jets. Alante Taylor, the cornerback.
Radins, former Titan, Dylan Radins.
North Dakota State, I believe.
Yeah, right.
Bang. Mark knew that.
Thank you, Justin.
Second round pick. Bust.
Okay,
Justin, we are on the air, just to let you know.
Taysom Hill looks like he's going quietly into that good night finally. So here we go. The Saints picking at number 8 in the first round, 42nd in the second round, 73rd in the third round, 2 fourth-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, a sixth-round pick. Where do the Saints go from here, Mr. Norris?
Mark, don't you think that the Saints are going to be everyone's, favorite worst to first flipperoo for the 2026 season? And since that is going to be everyone's favorite. Will it happen? I mean, that tends to be when groupthink happens across.
I feel like it's the Saints or the Giants that are going to be that. Yeah. But and the Titans. Those are the three.
Saints fit though for the way they finished last season as well, and the fact that they might have skipped a big step here by having a quarterback.
Yeah. So I get it. Positive trajectory here. I really like Kellen Moore as a coach. And, you know, they were feisty early on despite not winning games. And then when Tyler Shuck came in, you know, he played like a 26-year-old rookie should play, and that this didn't look like necessarily his rookie season with as many growing pains as others. The number one standout thing, though, on offense is the Alvin Kamara era is kind of over despite him still being on the roster. And you signaled that with bringing in Travis Etienne. And so you have Etienne and you have Chris Olave, who was excellent last year, but we need a little bit more juice. We need another playmaker. And at 8th overall, I think the Saints have a great shot of declaring who the wide receiver 2 is in this class. I would assume that Carnell Tate from Ohio State is off the board, but there's a debate across NFL draft media that Mark is embedded in, you know?
Absolutely.
Of who the wide receiver 2 is. Is it Casey Concepcion? That's my wide receiver 2. Could it be Mekhi Lemon, who other people like from USC?
Lemon.
A lot of other people like Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. And that might be the direction that he and they go in here. He has a pro day workout with scouts on the 17th, 2 days from now. And I think that goes into a big way of declaring if he's going to be the wide receiver 2 in this class. And again, I think the Saints really need that extra element to surround their old but new starting quarterback in Tyler Shuck.
Yes, Justin.
My hottest round 1 draft take in my mock draft that publishes tomorrow at NFL Draft on SI is
hello.
The Saints take Mekhi Lemon 8th overall.
Okay.
I think they do it. I think Tate's gone. If it's not to the Browns, it's to the Commanders. And then I think the Saints make Lemon a top 10 pick. I think they do.
It's interesting because I feel like I've seen Lemon mocked to the Rams like 758 times. So that would be your move right there. This is a draft where it's like you don't get a sense that there's going to be necessarily a lot of big trade movement. We can always be surprised by that. But the Saints, I wonder, with the Browns being whispered about at number 6 as a team that would be willing to move down potentially, and probably make the mistake of not taking Carnell Tate out of Ohio State like an hour and a half away, please. Would there be a world where the Saints maybe move up to like 6, for instance, not a huge move, and get their guy in Tate? If a team is willing to try. Mickey Loomis feels like the one kind of wild card guy that's going to do something we might not expect here.
Mickey Loomis in the Sean Payton era would do that all the time. You know, they would always kick the can with these teacher picks just to move up a couple spots. And it was very, very hit or miss if that worked or not. And, you know, we just had that conversation on the offensive side. The defensive side, they're going through an identity change here as well. You know, Cam Jordan right now, not in the building. DeMario Davis back with the New York Jets, and he was a focal point of the defensive side here. We know about the Marshawn Lattimore trade a couple years ago. So this is like a whole new world that we're entering with like Chase Young as the figurehead of this Saints defense. If Ruben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami, falls, maybe he is the pick here at 8th overall. So that's the 2 picks and spots I'm looking at here, Dan, is wide receiver or edge rusher.
Yeah, I think wide receiver makes so much sense. You have Olave, who's playing on his 5th-year option, and given his health issues and kind of the up and down nature of his tenure, it's fair to wonder what his long-term future is. So, and you really love this young quarterback, Shuck. So I think it makes a lot of sense for them to make that play. I think there's also, like, I think the Jets are another team, Mark, that could move, potentially trade out of their current pick to get a little further back, maybe in the top 10, and then go get a wide receiver. So I think that wide receiver race is going to be very interesting. And then A.J. Brown kind of looms over all of it, right? Because I still think there's a very good chance he could get moved in the next week. And in that case, that eliminates one of the teams from the mix that need that particular position filled.
I know this isn't a Jets podcast, even if it maybe always is a Jets podcast.
It can veer into that.
Check out the subreddit. I
could see the Jets, Dan, moving up from 16. You know, like I don't think that's discussed enough. Like they have
You can
so
move
many of
back
these
or
picks.
move up. Yep.
Right. So they can stay at number 2 and get whatever edge rusher they want. And then at 16, you can kind of just give up like pick 33 in a way, which I know is a big deal, but they already have another second round pick on top of that to move up and like get maybe both Arvell Reese / David Bailey and then Carnell Tate at number 6 overall. So like you get that
that's going to cause
number
a problem.
1 edge rusher and you get the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class.
It will be slightly fatal to the springtime episodes of the show when Carnell Tate winds up on the Jets after the Browns trade into the netherworlds to do nothing of note.
But it won't be boring. All right, Josh, you've said it all. Where can they find you? Where's the content to check out at this pivotal time of the NFL calendar?
Yeah, if you search NFL Draft, Josh and Hayden on YouTube, we have like 35, 38 prospect profiles that are like 8 to 10 to 12 minutes long on all these wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks and tight ends, and obviously plenty of mock drafts next week. Grading each first round pick immediately after round 1 as well. So just if you have nothing to do and you're up on adrenaline after that round 1, come check out our channel and watch us until about 2:00 in the morning, which is actually when my 4-month-old son gets up. So.
Yes, and congratulations.
Absolutely.
On fatherhood. And I guess just to close the thread here, before Apollo was savagely killed in the ring by Drago, in 3, he helped Rocky get the Eye of the Tiger back to win his rematch against Clubber Lang. So in that role as Mark's de facto trainer, is there anything to say before the big Lance showdown?
Mark, you have my number. I'm here for you whenever you need it. If there's a certain training regimen that you need updated, I can probably help you out with that too. I'm
gonna use your assistance because my plan
please
is
don't.
to
I've got enough
devastate
going
the
on.
competition.
Like really, if we're being honest, please don't.
Don't call you. Okay.
Inspiring,
I have no time in the
electric.
day anymore.
Don't
Josh Norris, everybody. We'll be right back.
I don't know about you, but I love the longer, sunnier days of spring, letting the breeze in, getting outside for fresh air, and tackling little home improvement projects. You know I'm doing that. There's something so satisfying about feeling your home come alive again after winter. But of course, with the warmer weather comes the bugs. You know the ones I mean, the ones that give you the heebie-jeebies the moment you see them. And it only takes one to turn into hundreds if you don't act fast. Since I started using Pesty's do-it-yourself pest control, these creepy crawlies have been completely MIA. I haven't thought about bugs once since spraying, and it feels amazing. Getting started was so easy. The kit came with everything I needed. Pro-grade pesticide, that's the same stuff the pros use, a sprayer, mixing bag, gloves, and instructions I could complete in minutes.
You know, Mark, after the first time we talked about Pesty on this show, my dad went and bought it himself, and he has been thrilled with the results. He tells me it's fast, effective, and affordable, and Pesty actually customizes the treatment to your season, location, and weather, so you know it's working exactly where you need it.
I love that it's kid and pet friendly and way stronger than those diluted, outdated, store-bought sprays. I'm not surprised it worked for your dad.
Right? So get bugs out of your house with Pesty. Go to pesty.com/HTC for an extra 10% off your order. That's PESTIE.com/HTC for an extra 10% off.
All right, we are back. Incredible work from Josh Norris. But Sessy, like we said, we are closing. We're landing the plane on the NFL Draft Cram Sesh for HTC, and we did it with. We're doing it with our best guests. And here comes another one. Another longtime friend of the show. He is just coming off his 10th season as the play-by-play man for the Los Angeles Rams, and a dear friend, the great JB Long, joins us to break down the NFC West. What's up, JB?
Zeus, good to see you. I'm fresh off a trip to our neighborhood barber. George the barber sends his best.
Love George. Big Chargers fan. Always a little bit of tension between JB and George over the football allegiances.
Yeah, he holds me to account on my fantasy football recommendations. Thankfully, those have faded into the distance, and he's now very curious to hear today's show. I tried to talk him into giving me like a 60% discount on whatever he charges you. I feel like on like a follicle ratio, that only seems fair. Mark, I don't know your opinion on such matters.
Well, I just wonder, it's good rapport to chat with the barber while the haircutting is happening. Do you guys spend most of your time just discussing Dan's hair?
It is a preferred topic, yes. He actually feels like he deserves some commission for Puka Nakua's luscious locks and maybe a Head and Shoulders endorsement forthcoming. So that's always a topic of conversation. But
okay.
And to be clear, at Jag's Barbershop in Westchester here in LA, and go there and get your hair done the right way. My personal barber is Brett, who's an actual rock star. So the whole team there is just a lot going on. But and yet we digress. The NFC West division, the best division in football. So maybe that's why we're closing out this whole series with the West. So let's start with the team that narrowly edged the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC title game, which was the true Super Bowl, as we all kind of suspected. And then they stomped the Patriots, as we remember. And the Patriots were never in the news again since. Anyway, here we go. Let's start with the Seahawks, though. Mike McDonald, 14-3, win the Super Bowl going away. And what do? They're like, we love this team. And there's going to be some changes, but we're not going to rock the boat. Emmanuel Wilson back in the running back room. Kenneth Walker is gone, of course, headed to the Chiefs. They bring back Rashid Shaheed, the do-it-all wide receiver. Drake Thomas, linebacker. Josh Jobe, Ty Okada at safety. Also, Boye Mafe leaves. Kobe Bryant, gone. Reek Woolen, gone. So some of the mainstays in their secondary leave, and we'll get to what that means for a team that has the final pick in the first round at 32, the final pick in the second round at 64, and of course they end the third round as well. Just 4 picks, JB, for the Seahawks. You saw them up close multiple times, 3 times this season. Where do they stand, and what do you think this team could use to get better, if that's possible, in 26?
Yeah, and a division that not only had 3 playoff teams, but 3 teams that were a game, maybe even a play away from being the 1 seed. They ultimately took that prize and the ultimate prize. And I think for a returning Super Bowl roster, this is a pretty solid, intact one. Not as many glaring needs as you would think. I think you've identified plenty of them there. Running back, I agree with the way they upgraded at 1 guard position last draft. I'm sure they would like to do on the right side maybe this year. Safety, I understand. I would add edge to this group, probably, is another one that's on my mind for the Seattle Seahawks. I think the last 2 world champions have probably demonstrated that you can never have too much pass rush, and McDonald in particular knows how to deploy it. So, yeah, 32 is interesting. That looks like prime trade back territory. It always is, as the last pick of that first night, but especially for a team that has a league low 4 picks, if they are interested in proliferating a bit, that's one that I think there will be an appetite for.
And if just to give clarity on what JB means by that, with the 32nd pick, it's obviously a first-round pick. It comes with the 5th-year rookie option pickup, more money. And then if you could just move back to the top of the second round, it's a more team-friendly setup while getting a player that's kind of in the same class in terms of a prospect. But anyway, Sessy, to you.
No, I think you're right. This feels like a team that might want to accrue picks, address different needs. Like, it's interesting to me because the Seahawks in this division grew up so quickly. It crescendos last year with the Super Bowl win, and they're now quickly dealing with what Super Bowl teams deal with, which is Kenneth Walker out the door. Like, we don't know if Zach Charbonnet is going to be fully healthy or ready to go. They feel like a target at 32, maybe for someone like Jadarian Price at running back out of Notre Dame. Like, that would be like, it's a need, and it would be the appropriate place to take someone like that. The other thing I think, though, is that it's going to be an interesting transition because Brian Flores steps in for Kubiak as your play caller. That is Sam Darnold's 7th straight new OC in 7 straight seasons. And we just talked about Baker Mayfield earlier in the show, but like, Darnold sets the stage for having to go through another transition. So I like the idea of surrounding him with a great running back, if you can get that there. But you're right, JB, like their whole method last year was like edge rusher piled on top of edge rusher. So anything could happen at 32 here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about, they were content with letting Walker leave or okay with it, knowing that Charbonnet might not even play next year. I mean, the timing of the injury suffered in the playoffs. So I think like in this exercise, at least on today's episode, I don't see a more obvious need for any team than to get a young, talented running back. We talked about how Notre Dame might have the top 2 running backs in this class. So Mark identified that. Once again, Sessler locked in with the big Marc Sessler mock draft coming up, the mock Sessler mock draft coming up. But yeah, they feel in general, JB, locked and loaded with just some tweaks to be made. And let's face it, a brain trust that can be trusted to make the most without a lot to work with.
Can I just say, as a Notre Dame graduate who had 4 coaches in parts of 4 years during my time in South Bend, that the possibility of having the top 2 running backs in an NFL draft class, I'm not sure what world I'm living in, but it's a better one than I experienced during the Lake Effect years.
That's interesting. Yeah, Connor was very proud of that as well as a big Notre Dame fan. Let's move now to the team that we know JB knows as well as anybody out there. It is, of course, the Los Angeles Rams. Let's take a look at where they're at. Sean McVay back once again, coming off a 12-5 season. Just miss out in the NFC title game. They do what we thought. They go after big upgrades in their secondary. And what do? They get Trent McDuffie in a trade. They bring in Jalen Watson. They also bring back Cameron Curl, Tyler Higbee, Harrison Mevis, David Quessenberry on the line. Who's gone? Tutu Atwell, Kobe Durant, Darius Williams. They pick 13th in the first round. How's that possible? We just talked about the Falcons traded the first round pick to the Rams last April, and Los Angeles is like, all right, cool. And why did they not have 2 first round picks? Because they traded that to get Trent McDuffie in the building, of course. So they pick 13th overall, 61st in the second round, 93rd in the third. Where do we go? What's next for this team under very steady and successful leadership in Los Angeles?
Well, a couple things to note about 13. If they do pick there, it would be the highest selection of Sean McVay's decade on the job. 13 is a meaningful pick for this organization.
That says a lot.
It's where they found a young man by the name of Aaron Donald, and a draft that's going back to Pittsburgh. There's a lot of tentacles to this. I think the fan base wants a playmaker, and I think everything orbits around the window of Matthew Stafford coming off an MVP season. But I think that was equally true last year. And what do? They actually traded back and delayed gratification and were able to spin that into Terrence Ferguson, a tight end, and ultimately Trent McDuffie here. So you guys ever have like one of those fantasy football drafts where as much as you'd like to be there, you just have maybe it's like back to school night and you just got to leave it on auto draft and hope for the best? I don't think Les Snead would do this, but if there was ever a draft to just sit back and wait and let the best player available be your guy at 13, I think this could be the one. Like I could very well see the scroll on your preferred network and Todd McShay's best available, maybe, 6th on his big board, ends up falling to 13. And whatever that ends up being, offensive tackle, edge rusher, corner, receiver, tight end, the Rams could be good with that because they don't have necessarily urgent immediate needs. But if you look at their 2027 depth chart, just about any premium position would be helpful.
They do feel like there is overt urgency to make this the all-in season with Stafford. Like that's the tone. And I really love that Les Snead and McVay, they just go for it. Like cornerback would have been a burning need in this draft, and they would have been forced to address it maybe higher than they would want to if they hadn't gone and done what they did. I just want to ask your opinion, though, because as I mentioned earlier in the show, Mekhi Lemon has been mocked to these guys by people that are talking to McVay and talking to Snead at these league events over and over. I think Casey Concepcion is another option there as well. But like adding a wide receiver who can contribute right now along Puka and Devontae, I think that makes a lot of sense because this is the season for the Rams.
I would add Jordan Tyson to that short list. I absolutely love him, but have been exposed to him quite a bit at Arizona State. Love his head coach, Kenny Dillingham. Love what Hines Ward has to say about him. I know the hamstring and the injury history is a deal. We'll see how he runs, but I could definitely see him as a fit. And, whether you call that wide receiver 3 or 2.5, whatever it is, it's unique to the Rams ecosystem for a couple of reasons. One, because they're playing more multiple tight end sets than ever. Two, because the wide receiver 2 on paper is Davante Adams, and he played a career low snap count last year for the Rams. And that was a good thing. I think they want to keep as much tread on those tires as they can and platoon skill playmakers, both at receiver and tight end. So if you can have someone come in and make an impact right away in that wide receiver 2.5 role, let's say, that's definitely valuable. I would just caution our fan base and I'm not saying the Rams are going to do this, but look at what happened at the tackle positions last year. Like Rob Havenstein goes down in the middle of the season. If you don't have Warren McClendon there playing at an NFL starting caliber level, there is no Matthew Stafford MVP season. There may not even be a trip to the playoffs. And the one game where they were missing Alaric Jackson at left tackle on Monday Night Football in Atlanta, that nearly cost Stafford his MVP and a whole lot more for this organization. So don't think that offensive line depth for any of these contending teams, including Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, couldn't benefit from investing in their trenches.
And one last point on the wide receivers. You mentioned Davante Adams' age and durability. It's fair to wonder. Puka Nacua has had an eventful offseason, to say the least, and his contract status is going to come into better focus. It would not surprise me, given this, not a gift because they went and they bought it, essentially, this draft pick, the way it falls in this draft class, which could end up with them being in line to take one of the very top wide receivers in this class. It wouldn't surprise me. It just wouldn't surprise me if it gave them some wiggle room and another playmaker, and who knows what could be maybe Matthew Stafford's last big bite at the apple. That would make a lot of sense to me, JB.
Dan, I think the best case scenario, the dream scenario, is if you could slide back from 13 to right around 20 because of the dynamic that I started with. If you could add another top 100 pick and still come away with one of those players that you have a lot of like for, nothing would be better from the Rams standpoint. I just don't know in this draft class and where they are what the appetite is going to be for moving up. And if there is a desire to move up, what are the chances that teams want to catapult ahead of Tampa Bay and Baltimore, but not the Rams? Like, if there is that trade up desire, I have a sense that teams might want to get in front of LA rather than trade with LA. But I would love to be wrong. Never in a million years would I've anticipated the value they got for trading out of their first round pick last spring.
Yeah, a quick one before we move on here. It's Daniel Jeremiah mentioned that there were only 2 teams linked to Ty Simpson. It's the Cardinals, makes sense, and the Rams. The Rams are not in position to get him if they're at 13-61. But is there a world where they prioritize getting that developmental quarterback this year and make a move, or is that kind of like, wait, why not just do that next year when you've got this like bath of riches at the position?
Sessy, it's a good question. If that world exists, they haven't invited me to live in it yet, but I wouldn't expect to be included in those plans. I think the lack of a QB2 penciled in on their depth chart currently is an intriguing possibility. We'll see what happens with Jimmy Garoppolo, but if you are trying to anticipate what might the Rams do, I don't hate, as a fan, the temptation that other teams might have to say, are the Rams going to take Ty Simpson here or anywhere else on their board? Might we need to get ahead of a team that doesn't have a fully built out quarterback depth chart yet? I'm skeptical, though, with respect to what we started with, which is this is Stafford's team. They go as far as he goes. And the next iteration of the Rams can wait, because I would say that Stafford has more than just one good year left in him.
All right, let's move now to the San Francisco 49ers, another powerhouse in the most loaded division in football. Let's take a look at where they stand. Follow along on YouTube to see things like that. Here we go. Head coach Kyle Shanahan back for another year, 12-5, taken down in the divisional playoffs. They add the veteran Mike Evans from Tampa Bay, Vidarian Lowe, Brett Toth. Drake Greenlaw returns from a one-year sabbatical with the Broncos. Nate Hobbs is in the building. They bring back Eddie Pinheiro, Jake Tongas at tight end. Kendrick Bourne is gone, as is Jordan Elliott, the defensive lineman. Sky Moore, another wide receiver, out the door. They pick at 27 in the first round, 58th in the second round, no third-round pick. So 6 picks overall, including 4. So they have a first-rounder, a second-rounder, and 4 fourth-rounders. yes, John Lynch has been doing work, and he has some to do because the division is as competitive as any in football.
Well, as I've spent most of the last week, grinding over this exercise and preparing for my Heat return ever since Graver extended the invitation, what I was forced to reckon with is just how improved the 49ers are going to be by getting healthy, like what internal free agency, whatever you want to call it, just like replenishing their depth chart from injured reserve. A lot of the players that they had counted on coming back to play the leading roles. The way that I conceptualize this is whatever they don't get at 27 or with their first round pick, offensive line, edge, receiver, I think could be a priority late in the second round. And if they are able to check 2 out of those 3 boxes on days 1 and 2, I think their roster's in great shape and once again set them up to contend.
I do. George Kittle tore his Achilles in January. And I think he's going to be the same player at some point here. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like early. I'm not trying to always pair Kenyon Sadiq with every team we talk about, but if he ever fell to the Niners, which seems unlikely to me, that would be an incredible player for Shanahan to work with. And I think at a position where you have no problem if you have 2 of those guys. It's kind of weird because on the Trent Williams contract thing is hanging over all of this a little bit. I look at the Niners and it's like they signed Christian Kirk, which kind of went under the radar for me. They've got Pearsall and Mike Evans. Like I feel like a wide receiver is possible here, like a Concepcion if he falls, or just someone that they can continue to surround Brock Purdy with weapons in a division that is utterly nasty.
Yeah, I feel like they could plug you or me in at tight end and still find success under Kyle Shanahan. The tackle part is interesting because I definitely could see them investing in their offensive line. The Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur system is designed to make life easier on offensive linemen and tackles in particular. And I think this pertains to the Cardinals conversation coming up too, where are they looking for a franchise right tackle? Do they want to create a situation where whoever they pick at quarterback next year is set up for success? Whether it's left guard vacated for San Francisco, Trent Williams' age and contract situation, if the Niners are in a position to get that offensive lineman in the first round, again, I think that's one of the areas where they stand to improve, not just this year, but in life beyond Trent Williams. So
I do like that JB does not note that Dan could step in at tight end and be productive right out of the gate. Maybe you need some development.
I'll handle that one, JB. I think because it was a given I could do it. It was more a question whether you could do it. And then JB himself is just being modest.
I think Dan's more like a speed, in the slot type of guy is how I conceptualize.
Yeah, but shifty. So, yeah. Just because I'm a white guy, is that what it is, JB?
Your Draft words, not mine.
All right. Yeah, Trent Williams is a future Hall of Famer and a brilliant left tackle, but they're going to have to figure out a succession plan there. Same thing with Christian McCaffrey. I just keep an eye on those positions as well for this team. Is there, these teams that are run well, it must be nice to root for a team that's run well. They tend to, without people even realizing it, come up with these plans to keep stability. Perfect example, your Los Angeles Rams, JB Long. Aaron Donald, one of the greatest to ever play the game, retires at the peak of his powers, and they almost don't skip a beat because they had a plan that went beyond the present, which takes us to the Arizona Cardinals, a team that never has a plan. What a division to be in for the Cards. Mike LaFleur, welcome to town. Good luck, buddy boy. 2025 record, 3-14. They add guard Isaac Samalo, Tyler Algier, Mark's guy, comes over from the Falcons. Gardner Minshew, QB battle for Minshew and our boy Jake Brisket. Roy Lopez, left tackle. Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver, comes over. They bring back L.J. Collier, Starling Thomas V, Blake Gillikin, Chad Ryland, the kicker, is back. Who leaves? Kyler Murray. He gone now in Minnesota. Jalen Thompson, the safety. Dalvin Tomlinson, the DT. They pick 3rd overall in the first round, 34th in the second, 65th in the third. One of 7 picks, 4 in the top 104 picks. So much work to do here, JB, and like the Jets who pick right before them and the Brownies who pick right after them, it'd be great if there was a blue chip quarterback here, but it's not the case. So where do you go then?
Yeah, I feel like we have to reverse engineer this from whatever their plan is at quarterback. Like, what does the 2 to 3 year Mike LaFleur horizon and plan look like? When do they take that quarterback? When do they have designs on finding that franchise quarterback, and how? Are they a Ty Simpson team? Are they a March for Arch team? Do they draw inspiration from the other teams in their division who have found quarterbacks in a variety of ways? Matthew Stafford by way of Detroit, Sam Darnold on his 5th team, the ultimate reclamation project, Mr. Irrelevant in San Francisco. If ever there was a franchise with a new head coach who might come in with a model that's different than let's take our medicine this year and hope to be atop of next year's draft, could I sell you on the Cardinals being that team? Like, there might be another path. Maybe Manning's the best path. But in the meantime, how do they consider their options? Because I'm with you. If Vegas does what we think they'll do and takes Mendoza and your Jets take an edge rusher, then maybe the smart thing for Arizona to do is either take their next favorite edge rusher or figure out the right tackle situation and take their best offensive tackle and wait for next year. But when you're a distant 4th in this division and you have to find a way to find that next quarterback, and you're a franchise that has tried to draft a couple of franchise quarterback and not necessarily struck out, but not arrived at that final destination yet, I'm not sure just repeating the blueprint with a new head coach is the answer.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an upset that Monty Ossenfort is still here as the general manager. And I think it's just that this is a turning point at number 3 where, like, we're going to learn a lot about what the Cardinals feel about themselves, because there's been whispers of the Cowboys being a team that, one of the few teams that might willingly trade up to get like an Arvell Reese, right? And maybe this would be the spot where the Cardinals say, we're not punting, but we are back in a mode where we're accruing picks. Like, or do the Cardinals go and do that right now? They've got a new defensive coordinator, Nick Rallis, who, like Arvell Reese, from what I read, would fit in perfectly in that scheme, the way that he moves players around and stuff. So I wonder if that's your move, you just go do that, you do offensive tackle, and they're sitting at 34, so that's the other Ty Simpson possible team. But if you're LaFleur, like, is that your move, or are you waiting till next year, like all these teams that are going to struggle, and say, I'm not going to just get Ty Simpson, then replace him with a much better product? This team to me is a little bit all over the place, not in a good way, Dan.
Yeah, and that's been, the story of the Cardinals for so long. I think if you're picking 2 in this draft, you're picking 3 in this draft, with the Titans 4th, who are kind of telegraphing, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, on that, but it seems like Jeremiah Love is a guy that they might be laser locked on. Is there anybody out there, if you're the Jets or the Cardinals, that will want to get up in front of the team picking 4th? Because the Cardinals are a team that has a lot of needs to fill, and there isn't that game-changing quarterback you could change. So, yeah, we'll see. And maybe you're right, Mark. Maybe they've decided internally, God, we need a savage, dynamic outside linebacker type like Reese, and they'll just stay home and pick him. But I'd keep an eye on the Cardinals, maybe moving out of this pick and trying to accrue as many players. But I also agree with that. I think the biggest mistake teams make, and you see it so many times, the QB needy teams, is they'll rightly identify, okay, next year is when we're going to get our quarterback, but then they can't help themselves, and they end up burning something like a 2nd-round pick or even a 3rd-round pick on a QB, where it's like, yeah, but he has no long-term future for you. Why did you just essentially burn the pick? So having some discipline and going about your business here, because obviously the time is not now for the Cardinals. It might not be next year or even the year after in this division, but you got to start building smartly here.
Given what you said, could either of you see a world where they do trade back and accrue picks, but then they solve for the quarterback before next year's draft class? And what I mean by that is, you've kind of touched on the dynamic of LaFleur and his timeline. And if he's, being patient enough to wait a year and take his medicine, then does he want to go into year 2 with a rookie quarterback? Or if they do have an arsenal of picks, might they get in the veteran quarterback market? Mm-hmm. Remember, this is a guy who's had a lot of exposure to what Stafford has meant to McVay and the Rams lately, who called plays in a Week 18 game with Jimmy Garoppolo against the Seattle defense a couple years ago and had fantastic success. Might he be more urgent necessarily than we're giving them credit for?
I think I do think Jacoby Brissett can get you through a season. And him and Minshew, I can see them both starting.
They're kind of a fun duo, by the way. Not a championship duo, but kind of fun.
I mean, Jacoby Brissett
is for a football season, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, maybe both, but maybe not to build a playoff team. But, they seem like a good hang and they could sling it,
It's a good point, though, about LaFleur, because it's kind of like, what have they told him behind the scenes about the patience level? And I don't know if it's an ownership situation where I trust anything that's been said on some level, but LaFleur can't be scapegoated for what happens this year if they don't do something else at quarterback. It might be one of the bigger stories coming out of the draft, because I think that Ty Simpson landing spot will be a major headline. And the Cardinals just feel like if they move around a little bit like that, why not try? Why not try?
Build in the trenches, add some pieces on defense, and then make your play. But I like JB. A team zagging while everyone else is going in the other direction, you could end up being the big winner in it all. So Cardinals are in a long-term planning mindset, or they should be. All right. Well, you've said it all, JB, and you've done it. Huge appearance from you, bringing down the curtain, closing it out, Mariano Rivera style. Thank you very much, good sir.
Appreciate the invitation. Graver, good to see you. I hope you get what you want, which is love. And Sessy and Zeuser, have a great offseason.
Thank you, buddy. Can't wait to hear you again on the play-by-play for the Rams. Nobody better in the business. Thank you, JB. There he goes. Thank you to JB Long. Thank you to Josh Norris. Thank you to everyone, all of our guests that really drove the conversation on 8 divisions in the NFL ahead of Thursday's a week from now NFL draft. I feel more prepared. We had a little production meeting, Mark, a day ago, and Justin had pointed out that he feels smarter and more educated about this draft after our series, and we can only hope the audience feels the same.
That was the acid test for me, to discover that Justin had learned from this exercise versus quietly judging us from a distance. Nice. So I like that dynamic. We made some new friends. We added to our friendship with many friends of old, and I think we had 8 great guests, and I'm patting myself on the back as I think that the two of you should.
I do think the Trojan horse in all of this is, I got to think this bought you at least 3.5 to 4.5 more correct hits on your mock draft.
There was a year not long ago where I lost to Justin, not in a head-to-head competition, by getting, I believe, 2 right in the entire round. Right. I cannot reproduce. It needs to be, this exercise helped, and it needs to show up in solid, tangible results.
Absolutely. The reputation of Heed the Call is on the line. Thank you to everybody for checking out this show and this series. We'll be back with one more show this week. Another favorite of ours, the great Zach Kiefer from The Athletic, joins us for a Flashpoint focus. Ooh, baby.
Lost it.
On the Las Vegas Raiders as they sit in the catbird seat. First overall in the draft. What comes next for the Raiders, who've had a fairly messy century so far? In fact, I did a little research, Mark, as we're going to get into it. The Raiders haven't won a playoff game since George W. Bush's first term in office.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. All right. So that's
9/11, baby.
Oh, what was that, Mark?
That was Justin. 9/11, baby.
Yes, that wasn't the first term, but we don't need to dwell on that, Mark. All right. till Thursday, do what you must. Heed the call.
9/11, baby.